welcome to Sunshine for Your Life. Today I'm going to be talking about Revelation, which is the last book of the Bible. But before I do that, I'm going to show you a group of maps because I want you to understand where this takes place. Now, Revelation in the Bible was written, it is a vision that John had. It's a prophecy by Jesus himself to John. And in the Bible it says that an angel came for Jesus to give John this revelation. And the whole book is about this revelation about Jesus. And it's him, Jesus, and things that are happening at that time and things that will happen for the future. Now we need to understand what prophecy is. Everyone knows that prophecy is when you predict the future. But in the Bible, a prophet who was called by God could give information about what was happening at that time, for them, the present time, and then project into the future. And sometimes they did the same at the same time. So a prophecy might be for something that was happening then and there, and yet at the same time predicting something that was going to happen in the future. And what we have to understand is sometimes it's a little difficult to determine how much of a prophecy was for their present time and how much of it is for our time and the future for even us. And so you have to understand that's what prophecy was. It wasn't just somebody talking about the future. It could be the present time and the future at the same time, or it could be just the present, or it could be just the future, and that needs to have some figuring out to determine all of that. So this happened to John. It was a revelation of Jesus, and it was to John, and an angel gave it to him, and it was for both that at that time and for the future present time, and for us even the time of us, and we were the future to them. So at any rate, it can be interesting to figure that all out. Now it happens on the Isle of Patmos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some maps because I want you to understand where Patmos was. John, and I need to mention one more thing about John. There are several people in the Bible whose names was John. And nobody knows, from what I understand, nobody knows for sure what John it was, but his name was John. And he's on the Isle of Patmos. Now you have to understand that Patmos is an island in the Mediterranean. And when people were punished, sometimes they weren't put in prison if they were considered to be criminals, or if they're being persecuted for their religious faith, they would take those people and put them on an island. They couldn't get back to the mainland. It was just an island, and they would either make it or they wouldn't make it. John was banished to Patmos, an island in the Mediterranean. That meant that he could not get back to Israel. He could not get back to where he was, and he was just going to be on that island for the rest of his life. And he was either going to make it or he wasn't going to make it. And part of the punishment for some people was to bring him to an island and just put him on the island and leave him there. And they either make it or they don't make it. So we'll want to show you, first of all, I'm going to show you this map here, which is a map of the world, and show you where Israel is and show you where Patmos is. I have several other pictures to show you as well. But here's a picture of Europe, Africa, the Middle East, part of the Eastern world. This whole area here, and I've showed this before, is Russia, and China is down here. Now, here is the Mediterranean Sea in this area right here. Moscow is going to be up here. Jerusalem in the Middle East, you can't even see the country. I just kind of put a dot there. That's going to be Jerusalem right here. This area here is going to be the Middle East. This right here is going to be Turkey. This little yellow thing that extends out here is Turkey. And this area right here is Greece. This is going to be Italy. You're getting into the European nations. This is going to be Italy. You can see a little bit of a boot there. This whole area is Africa, and this here would be Israel around here. This is Russia, and Jerusalem. You can see it's kind of a straight shot. And Turkey is right here, and Greece is right here, and Patmos is right off the island of Turkey. Now I'm going to just I wanted you to see the whole area just for you to become familiar with it. Now I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to put other maps up. Okay, this is Israel. This is Israel right here, where that little area, this darker area of green is. Whoops, we'll get that up. It'll be up in just a second, but you'll see what it is. There. Okay, this is Israel, where the green is. This is Israel. This whole area is going to be Africa. This is Egypt, as we bring that up a little closer. There, that's very good. Now, this is the Mediterranean Sea. This is Turkey right here. I have it colored in. The color doesn't show very well on the screen, but this is Turkey. This is Greece, and Patmos is going to be right here, off the coast of Turkey, between Turkey and Greece. This is going to be Patmos Island. And this is where John was taken. When he was banished off the Israeli coast, there he went. He went right there, and that's where the vision occurred. So you can see Patmos is an island off the coast of Turkey, some kind of a little bit between Turkey and Greece. This is Cyprus. There's all kinds of islands here. This is the Mediterranean Sea. He's off the coast of Turkey. This is Patmos. Now let me take this off, and I'll show you another map here. This is going to be Israel. This rose-colored area is going to be Israel. This is Syria. This is Lebanon. This here is Turkey right here. Patmos is off the island. You probably, it's not even on here, but I just want you to see the whole area. You can see where Patmos is. It's going to be off the coast of Turkey. And you don't see Greece here, but it's off the coast of Turkey and in the Mediterranean Sea. Now, I've got a couple of others to show you. You see, I think I'll skip this one. It's got too much green in it. Okay, this is Turkey right here. Patmos is right here, where that little red circle is. That's Patmos, off the coast of Turkey. Now, when Jesus was resurrected, churches start to form, and there were 7 beginning churches, and they're basically on the coast or the western part of Turkey. Ephesus, Smyrna. I have to look at this careful. Laodicea, Philadelphia, Sardis, Thyatira, Pergamon. These are the 7 beginning churches, and they're on the west coast of Turkey. And Patmos is right off that island, right here. Patmos is an island right off the western coast of Turkey. This is the way that it is. And so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to kind of close out this map section. I'll just do one more map so you see Israel, and you can see what it is like. You can see that this is the coast of, this is Turkey. This is Israel. This is the West Bank. This would be Bethlehem right here. This would be Jerusalem, and you go up here and you get into another country, but this is what Israel is. And you have the Gaza Strip, you have the West Bank, you have Jaffa, and one more place I want to show you before I take this down, where this is Israel, and this here is Caesarea and Jaffa. this would be the area of Megiddo, which is where the Battle of Armageddon would have been fought. So I will take the maps down, and I want to describe to you what goes on in Revelation, and you'll have a chance I'll have a chance to talk to you about that. Now, Revelation is the last book of the Bible. It was written by John, but nobody knows for sure which John. It was written in about 95 AD, and he was exiled. John was exiled to the island of Patmos, and it's an island off the coast of modern-day Turkey. Now, the people were banished because of their religious beliefs. It was part of the persecution. But this vision, which was given to John by Jesus and angels that did it for Jesus, they wanted people to know, God wanted people to know what was happening now and in the future. In their part, now for them, at the time it was written, in the future, which would include us. Now, I'm not going to take every book that talks about Jesus. It talks about the second coming. I'm just talking about, I'm not going to take every chapter that occurs either, but I'm going to just go in it in a general sense. Now, Revelation 22:10 says, "Do not seal up the words of the prophecy in this book. These things are about to happen." So it is a book about the end times. So I want to talk about it in a general sense, but not go into everything. Revelation promises a special blessing to those who are interested in the second coming. And all of the symbols used in Revelation are also used in other books of the Bible. It is a revelation of Jesus, and it has the last recorded words of Jesus, and it's written so that the understanding of it comes as history proceeds. In other words, it unlocks itself, and it's due to a lack of technology. They could not describe, John could not describe exactly what was happening. He had to use his language for things that were happening that he did not have the words to describe because of the language barrier. He had no airplanes, there was no technology, so he had to describe things that just didn't happen very well. And so therefore, it's a hard time, it's a hard way to describe it. Revelation is called sometimes the grand central station of the Bible. The symbols of the Bible are fulfilled in Revelation, and it's written to the 7 churches of Asia. Now, I mentioned before when I showed you the map, there were 7 churches that formed after the resurrection of Jesus, and they were in the western part of Turkey, and it was written to those churches. Now, what I'm going to do is talk a little about the things that are in the Bible in Revelations. Now, chapters 1 through 3 of Revelation is a greeting to the churches. Jesus kind of introduces himself. Its salvation is discussed. John describes who Jesus is. And what happens in those first 3 chapters, it's written for those first 7 churches. It talks about what is good about the churches, what is not good about the churches, what they need improvement on, what their good points are, what their weak points are, and what it is that they need to do to improve themselves and to make themselves better churches, and on it goes like that. And it goes for that for the first 3 chapters of Revelation. Then there are 22 chapters in Revelation. From the 3rd chapter to about the 19th chapter, you don't hear anything about the churches. It's all prophecy. And some of it is very, very symbolic. And it's so symbolic that it's not understandable. So what I want to do is go through a little bit of each chapter, and I do mean a very little bit. And then we will just work with Revelation in that way. Okay, so chapters 2 through 3 are letters to the churches in Asia. Chapter 1 is the vision of the risen Lord. that when you get to chapters 4 and 5, the scene of heaven, talks about the 7-year tribulation beginning. Chapter 6 is the tribulation begins, and there are sealed judgments. There are judgments throughout the book of Revelation. These are released to those who are on earth. Chapter 7 is a chapter that shows that the Jews and the members of every nation of the tribe of Israel. Chapters 8 and 9 goes on the judgments that fall upon the earth. Chapter 10 goes on about the angels giving John a book. Chapter 11 talks about 2 witnesses that will speak for God for the earth. Chapter 12 goes on about the Antichrist, how he persecutes Israel and those who turn to Christ. The Antichrist and how he persecutes them. Chapter 13 talks about the Antichrist rising to power, to world power. Chapter 14 goes on about the 144,000 people of chapter 7. They're seen as being safe with Jesus, and the Antichrist armies are marching to Armageddon. And it talks about grapes, so they're going to be trampling on grapes. But you have to understand the symbolism of it. Chapter 15 and 16 are the bowl of wrath of judgment poured upon the earth. Chapter 17 and 18 are the satanic Babylon and how the end time government is going to be destroyed. Chapter 19 talks about Armageddon, the time for the marriage of the Lamb of Jesus to people who are in heaven. And chapter 20 talks about Christ establishing a 1,000-year millennium, the kingdom of peace, and prophesied in Isaiah 11. And then chapters 12 through 22 talks about the new heavens and the new earth. Now, I've given you just almost like a line from each of the books of each of the chapters of Revelation, but you have to understand that Revelation is a prediction of what is their present and what is their future. And it's a hard book to understand. The language structure is different, and I really don't want to get into much of it because it's going to be too confusing. So you have to understand that there are the 22 books of Revelation, and 22 chapters of Revelation, and all of those chapters refer to Antichrist, Christ, bowl judgment, the kingdom of God coming down on earth, how Babylon is destroyed. Babylon is a nation, but it's also destroyed. It's an evil governmental system that people have that day, and that's going to be destroyed. And so this is what Revelation is. It's 22 chapters long. It's hard to understand it, and I really only want to mention it so that people will understand that it predicts the future of the earth, and it predicts how God is going to judge the future. And so that's the way that it is, and then it predicts Jesus' second coming, and it goes on like that. So I just want to, it's given as a revelation of Jesus to John on the Isle of Patmos. And I don't really want to get into it too much because it's very hard to understand. You have to understand that Jesus is talking to John about the future, and is talking about John and what's going to happen in the future to the church. And it talks about the churches, and then when you get to chapter 3, it doesn't talk about the churches anymore until you get to about chapter 19. Then the churches are mentioned again. It talks about the rapture of the church. And one of the things that is a proof of the rapture of the church is the fact that it doesn't mention the church after a certain chapter, and there are chapters about prophecy that don't mention the church at all. It talks about Jesus and his second coming, and then at the end it talks about the churches again. So I'm going to quote it here because really I don't want to get in too deep in it, but just talk about it in a general sense. So I'll close it here, and then next time we meet, we'll be just doing a kind of a synopsis of the second coming, and go through the chapters that I've talked about and what the second coming is. So we'll close it here, and we'll finish with this the next time. So please join me next time, and we'll close off the study of the second coming. And so I hope you will join me then.